What's up, everybody? Welcome in. It is Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live. We are your hosts. I'm Josh Elmer. He is Chris Meglio. You can follow us out there. I'm at Josh on Ref. He is at Chris_Meglio. And of course, follow all of our work at all of the various places that it may be. Myself, HawkeyesWire.com, where you can check out all of my Iowa work. Chris, tell the folks where you're at.
Yeah, I'm at the Daily Iowan. You can catch me on there. We'll be on the TV side soon, so you won't just read my articles, but you'll also see my face very soon. And starting next Monday, you can catch me at the Des Moines Register for the summer. It's just exciting opportunity. So, just got out to Des Moines on Thursday, so I'm exploring the area, but I'm excited to start working out there. But of course, this show is the main place where you can see my face and hear my voice.
This Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live, numero 8 for us this evening, right here on Iowa at the voice of college football. And let's just jump right into it. Is the Cy-Hawk game in danger down the road? The contract for Iowa and Iowa State for the Cy-Hawk game currently runs through 2027. They re-upped it a couple of years ago. So we know that, well, we think we know that you've got the 2025 game between these two, 2026 and 2027. And who knows, they might re-up this thing between now and the year 2027. But with some of the rumblings in college football, the college football playoff expansion, the Cy-Hawk game, could that be something that ends up in danger as a bit of that process? If you were with us last week, you know that we spent a lot of time talking about the 4-4-2-2-1 college football playoff expansion model. And without rehashing all of that out, suffice it to say, if you get a 16-team college football playoff, that opens the door, Chris, potentially for a crossover set of games between the Big Ten and the SEC. And if and when you get to that point where the Big Ten and the SEC are crossing it over, could the Cy-Hawk game potentially be in danger? Let me paint the picture for you. You've got your 9-game Big Ten conference schedule. You know you've got that if you're Iowa. If you get the Big Ten SEC crossover, okay, there's a 10th Power 4 game that you've got on the schedule every single season. And obviously at that point, it leaves just the 2 open dates on the schedule. Conceivably, you could fill the 11th with what has been that in-state Cy-Hawk game rivalry. Or you could say, you know what? We've got enough in the way of Power 4 opponents on the schedule. And with the Big Ten 9-game conference schedule, and now with the crossover game versus the SEC annually, that's enough for us. We'd like the flexibility to go schedule an FCS opponent, maybe a lower-level FBS opponent, 2 of your prototypical tune-up type games in the non-conference to go with that Big Ten SEC crossover game. And as this started percolating out there over the past week, Chris, it seemed like, and social media is not the greatest indication always of how fans feel, but it didn't seem like there was this grand pushback from Iowa fans to save the Cy-Hawk game. So I ask you off the top, where do you stand with this? Could the Cy-Hawk game be in danger down the road if you get college football playoff expansion, if you get a Big Ten SEC scheduling alliance? And how do you feel about it?
Yeah, well, first off, I will say you did a great job telling the audience about the 4-4-2-2-1 and the 5-11 process for next year and explaining why it's in danger. So I won't get too much into that. You did a good job of that already. But I think, there has to be a way for it to stick around. I think this is, no matter what the game is, every season, this is the one game that Hawkeye fans and Cyclo fans really look forward to. I mean, regardless if, the Big Ten SEC crossover happens, regardless if the Big 12 moves to a 9-game conference slate. Well, first, I'll start with the Big 12 conference slate, actually, because if they move to 9, Big 10's already in 9, but we make it work. So if they move to 9, they should be able to make it work too. I don't see why that couldn't happen. But if the Big 12 moves to 9 and the Big 10 SEC crossover happens and we kind of move to 10 in a sense, it does make it difficult, but you got to understand this is one of the most important games on the schedule every single year, regardless of who's in the conference, who is playing, who's not playing, whatever. So, and this is not just about entertainment. This generates revenue. You got to think about what it does for the economy. You got to think of what it does for notoriety for the coaches, the players, to get them noticed. This is a big rivalry. That's why this year it's on Primetime Network, and you got the Fox crew coming to the game this year because it's such a primetime game. So the fact that this is supposedly in danger, it just doesn't make sense in my head. This has to stay. I love this every year. There's been tragedy my first year watching this. We had lost that game and it was raining and that was terrible. But the past couple of years we got our footing back as the Hawkeye State, as we should. But there's no reason why this should go. I understand it might be tough, but if we have to move one of those, like we got, UMass and Albany, I believe, this upcoming year, if we does move to a supposed 10-game conference slate, we'll just call it that for the Big Ten. UMass or Albany has to go because Iowa State, they can't move. We can't get them off the schedule. It makes no sense. It has to stick around. It's been a rivalry. It's called a rivalry for a reason, and it's just good it's good all around for not just the two schools, but the state of Iowa and the nation as a whole, because to see this beautiful rivalry, it has to stay, man. It just has to. I don't know what else to say. It's got to.
I want to see it continue as well, which at this point, it's all conjecture. We don't know that the college football playoff is going to expand to 16 teams. It feels like there's a lot of momentum for that. Again, we spent so much of last week talking about there's going to be these 4 automatic qualifiers to the Big Ten and the SEC, and that's what Tony Petitti wants, and it sounds like that's what Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner, wants. And lo and behold, you end SEC spring meetings last week, and the new model that was garnering the most attention was the 5+11 model. We'll get into that in just a moment, but for the Hawkeyes, if it does expand, obviously that would have to be step one. Then you'd have to get the two conferences, the Big Ten and the SEC, to even agree for a scheduling alliance. And at least for the moment, you technically have uneven numbers of members in the two conferences. You've got 16 in the SEC. You've got 18 in the Big Ten. So theoretically, Chris, I could paint you a picture where Iowa doesn't play an SEC team every single season. Obviously, it would be most seasons, and I would campaign as somebody that covers Iowa that, to me, you want to play and meet the best. I think it gives you a chance to – I think playing and beating the best gives you the best pathway to enhancing your program. I think that gives Iowa the roadmap to potentially enhancing its recruiting if you play and beat some of those powers that be in the SEC. So count me in the camp that give me the annual SEC game every single date. We can discuss, is there an SEC opponent that you'd like to just turn into an annual rivalry of sorts? Do you just want to lock in one opponent from a regionality standpoint? Missouri would make sense in that regard. But the bottom line is, to me, I think you want an annual game versus the SEC. But on top of that, I don't think you want to lose the Cy-Hawk game with that. I think you just want both. You get one tune-up game, and if you're really good, it sets you up for the clearest path to the 16-team college football playoff. I just think the schedule strength component to it, the way that it sharpens you up for Big Ten play, I think those are greater advantages than it is, hey, let's duck and run from a challenging schedule. I know that there's some folks out there, and I'm looking at you, Lincoln Riley, with USC and the Notre Dame series. There's some that maybe don't want to take on that scheduling challenge. But to me, if I'm Kirk Ferentz, if I'm Beth Getz, if I'm Iowa, and I'm looking at the long-term future of the program, I want the Cy-Hawk game. It's a good measuring stick early in the season, and that's independent from if you get a Big Ten SEC crossover game. I want the game because I want to find out right out of the chute, what do we have after a tune-up game versus an Albany, versus a UMass, insert opponent here, you catch my drift. Plus, you look at the all-time series, Chris, and look, though Iowa led that game throughout and obviously lost it at the end last year versus Iowa State, you should feel comfortable that you win this game most of the time. You own the all-time series 47-24, and over the past decade, you've dominated the Cy-Hawk game. So to me, if we're talking about it makes your schedule so much more difficult, okay, yeah, it makes the schedule more difficult, but this is a game that you've had a lot of success in. So I think from that standpoint too, keep the game.
Of course. First of all, it is a Hawkeye state. Let's get that out the way. 100% is, and that stat of 47-24 all time, that definitely proves the fact. So Hawkeye State through and through. But I just kind of want to ask you this question, because if Iowa State, if they're really debating on getting rid of the Cy-Hawk game, but keeping these two regional games, as you said, you want to, play some regional games, I guess, get them some notoriety, some recognition. What possible reason could it be for those regional games to be more important than the Cy-Hawk game? Because in my head, when I'm trying to make sense of this, it does not make sense. I don't think playing Albany or UMass is more important than playing Iowa State and keeping this rivalry together.
I don't think it is either. I think it just boils down to if the Big Ten and the SEC iron out a scheduling agreement, that's something that even if privately, let's say, Beth Getz kind of didn't support it and thought that, okay, if you have a scheduling alliance with the SEC, the Cy-Hawk game is something that could pay the price as a result of that. Ultimately, you're kind of at the mercy of what the Big Ten and SEC powers both want to do, right? If, for instance, privately Beth Getz and Kirk Ferentz say, well, no, we value the Cy-Hawk game over a Big Ten SEC scheduling alliance. If the majority members in both the Big Ten and SEC say, no, we want the Big Ten SEC scheduling alliance, that could maybe get, risen up and out of your hands, so to speak. If you're dead set on, hey, we're not going to eclipse 10 Power 4 games.
Yeah, I actually like the Big Ten SEC idea, because as you said, with Iowa being a premier football program, though we haven't, won national championships, so we've been an 8+ win team for a very long time now. I think, as you said, playing the best competition is very important to see where we stack up against the best, and that'll probably help our chances getting a playoff bid, but and improve our strength of schedule. Of course, I know that goes into the CFP committee's decision on playoff teams. But let's say that does happen, and now that you can count it as a 10th conference game, unless there's some information that I just do not know, I don't see why we could add an SEC team to our schedule and keep the Cy-Hawk game at the same time. I think that's possible, unless we have a signed deal agreement with two regional games or something of that nature. I think it is possible to keep Iowa State the Cy-Hawk series, as well as SEC team where, let's say, we play Georgia once a year or LSU once a year, even though that will be very tough. I know for sure the Hawkeye fans would love to see that, since we're a premier program. What could our tight ends do? What could Addison Ostrenga do against the LSU defense? What could Mark Gronowski do against the Georgia Bulldogs defense, or I'll call it the future of the Philadelphia Eagles, because the Eagles love their Bulldogs, I guess. But there has to be a way where we could keep both. There has to be a way where it could merge. And Kirk Ferentz, being the old school guy that he is, the one that just purely loves football, that's why he's been doing it for 26, 27 years. I'm sure he would like the idea too of playing some better competition and proving why his program is still a premier program. I don't see why it wouldn't.
I would love to see where you have your 9-game Big Ten conference schedule, you keep your in-state rivalry, and oh, by the way, you get an annual SEC crossover game for excitement, the discussions that it creates for you and I and opposing fan bases, the interactions, the rivalries that it could create with opposing SEC fan bases. I think it's great. I think more is merrier. I think it's more exciting, but I'm of the mind and the awareness that, look, if that were to happen with the Big Ten and the SEC, the Cy-Hawk game, just based on what's happened elsewhere, right, with conference realignment and some of these series across the board in college football, that it could be at risk. But hey, I'm firmly in the camp. I'm firmly of the belief that, yeah, play both. So as this Big Ten SEC scheduling alliance seems like more and more it could be a possibility. Do you like the idea of getting an annual game, say, against a Missouri? Talking about regional opponents, Missouri's somebody that, hey, not too far away, recruit a lot of the same players if you're Iowa, if you're Missouri. Or do you like the give me a la carte? Give me a piece of everybody, just rotate through SEC opponents over time. Are there a couple of specific SEC programs that would be exciting? I say Missouri, just that was the first program that came to mind just because of the geographic closeness of the two programs. But I'm all for just rotate it around. Oklahoma, could that make sense as an annual opponent for Iowa if you get an annual locked-in opponent out of the SEC? I don't know. Well, what do you think in that regard?
Yeah, make it a carousel. Let's keep it interesting and mix up the teams. I do like the Missouri option. I'm thinking a little deeper on this just because us and Missouri are two of the better journalism schools in the country. So it's not only about who could win that game, but who could write the better piece on the game after. I was with the Missouri grad last year for my internship. Shout out Maddie, I believe her name was, from Missouri. She just graduated. Shout out her. But yeah, I would love to see who could write the better piece after the game, after Iowa beats Missouri. Even though Missouri is kind of tough in football. I know just got the stadium revamped. So if it is SEC, I would love to see us go to Missouri for me to have a reason to travel there and see their new stadium. But make it a carousel. Add a Georgia in there. Add a LSU in there. Add Oklahoma, Oklahoma State. Add them in there and keep it interesting. I don't see why not. We could. It doesn't have to be like a Missouri every single year or Oklahoma State every single year. It just keeps it interesting. I think playing the same out of conference school over and over and over again, it just doesn't. It I don't want to say it doesn't make sense, but it just doesn't. If you know you're going to play them every single year, it takes away from that curiosity of the schedule release. Oh, who are we going to play this year? Even in the Big Ten, you know, you don't. We know we're not going to play a UCLA every year because I don't believe we're playing them this year. We didn't play USC last year, but now we're playing them this year. So I think just for that fact, yeah, every single year, mix it up. See, I don't know, pull the names out of a hat or something to see who gets the draw. I would love that. And yeah, I think, but I wish they had it this year because I know this is my last year, so I wish they had an SEC school in there just so I could see that happen with my own eyes and write an article on it. But I'm sure we're Hawkeye fans. We'll be popping in, tuning in for a long time, so it'll be interesting. I would love to see that. Sorry to cut you off. Let me ask you this: if it's not Missouri, who is? I'm trying to think of it on top of the head, but I can't think of it. Who else is the closest SEC school?
Well, here's what I was going to pose to you. And I think everything you said, the argument there makes sense that it takes a little bit of the excitement away if you've got it written in stone with an annual opponent. Or how about this idea? This would be the case in this scenario as well. But I think with something like this, I could make an argument to you, or I could make an argument to the Big Ten or the SEC offices that part of the way to generate excitement is to create some regularity, create some frequency between a couple of programs. So maybe you don't just have one annual SEC opponent. Maybe you have a group of 3 or 4 that you rotate through instead of the entirety of the SEC or the Big Ten. So for instance, for Iowa, let's say I give you a rotation of Missouri, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Texas. Some schools that kind of are within that same geographical area. I don't throw Florida your direction, and you catch my drift, right? Schools that maybe are a little bit closer, and you can play those 4 on a regular basis, just rotate through them. And so over a decade-long period or so, you'd see each a couple of times. Or, if it's 3 schools, or if it's just 2 schools, well, okay, now you can see them quite a bit.
100%. I definitely see what you're saying. It would make it easier and probably more understandable if we do play those closer schools. I I would love to, well, as much as I would love to play, the LSU's and Georgias, um, it would probably make more sense to play someone probably closer to our level. I know LSU and Georgia are always up there. Like you mentioned the Arkansas, but I'm thinking like the Oklahomas are usually elite program, but not super elite. I would love to see, probably it's not like where every single year if we played at LSU, they're probably going to be the favorites to win. But if we do play in Oklahoma or even now Missouri is up there, those schools where it's every year you can say, oh, well, this could be the Hawkeyes year or this could be the Tigers year or the Sooners year. I feel like Arkansas, we would have the better advantage. We would be what LSU would be to us, I feel like, in terms of they're not the most prominent program. We would be the favorites to win. But as you said, like keep it a carousel of those close schools, but also making sure that it's not a kind of, oh, they're expected to win every single year. Keep it interesting and make it so where it's kind of same level programs to where every year is unpredictable and in terms of who's going to win, who's going to lose. And I would love to see that. That's my theory.
You could try to create some of that by using standings from the year before or standings averaged out over a graduation cycle or 5 years and then kind of, matching teams up that way a little bit. Maybe that could be a scheduling consideration if and when you get to a Big Ten SEC scheduling alliance. I think Iowa, Arkansas, for me, that seems like a couple of programs that tend to maybe be in the same neck of the woods. Kentucky's been better of late. And of course, Iowa's played Kentucky recently a couple of times in bowl games. So maybe there's something there with a program like that. CBS Sports was running through exciting potential matchups for a Big Ten SEC scheduling alliance. And they had Iowa Auburn pitted against one another, which would be kind of fun. So I don't think you can go wrong whichever direction you slice it, even if Iowa gets a juggernaut. What was one of the most fun games in the past decade or so for Iowa? It's when Iowa slayed the giant of Ohio State unexpectedly at home at night in Kinnick. So if you could create something like that versus an SEC program for Hawkeye fans, that would be a ton of fun. So count me in. I'm all about enhancing these schedules and getting a great non-conference game in there for Iowa, in addition to the Cy-Hawk game. I think it'd be a ton of fun.
I like your thought of looking at the record the year prior and basing it off that. I definitely do because right now I'm looking at Arkansas. I can't find their 2024 record for some reason, but let's go out 2023 where Iowa went 10-2. Should have been 11-1, by the way. That Cooper DeJean fair catch game was brutal. But let's say, we went 10-2. Arkansas went 4-8. 1-7 in conference. That'd probably be a matchup where we might be favored. I don't know what the record was last year, but I know that Oklahoma was solid the year before. Let's say both of their programs were 8-4. That'd probably be a matchup where it's a little more closer, and I guess that'd be one that's more favorable. But we could throw Arkansas in our schedule just for get us an extra win in college football playoffs, another chance to prove ourselves that we can stack enough wins and get it going. But yeah, there's so many theories we can come up with to make sense of it and how it would go. But I like your theories of the geographic carousel, making it close, and record by year. I definitely like those. So for Kirk Ferentz, Beth Getz, let's get that ball rolling, because that would be. I'm speaking for all students at Iowa. We would love to see that. We want the challenge. We know what we're up against. We want that challenge, so please make it happen. Kirk Ferentz, make it happen, or whoever is the next head coach, because I'm sure that 26, 27 years in, I'm sure his time is coming to an end. The clock is ticking for him, I'm sure.
Iowa, Arkansas, I think makes a little bit of sense in my mind too, just because I look at each of those two programs, and though post Bobby Petrino, there were some lean years for Arkansas. Arkansas is a program that over the past quarter century, for the most part, look, they're not in that elite pecking order of college football, but they've had some seasons where they rattle off some really good years. And the state of the two programs in terms of, again, I think about this with some of the other programs out there. I mentioned Missouri earlier. They, to me, recruit in sort of the same neck of the woods at times. You're not going to see Iowa and Arkansas with that top 5 class nationally. You're not going to see Iowa and Arkansas with that top 10 class nationally, but you'll see Iowa, you'll see Arkansas every now and again pick off a top 25 recruiting class. You know that year in, year out, they're going to win a lot of football games. They're hard-nosed programs. They're blue-collar programs in a way. So I see some similarities between Iowa and Arkansas, the way those two programs operate. So that could be fun if it morphed into an annual game. But just in closing, the 5+11 college football playoff model doesn't matter to Iowa. So the college football playoff, it sounds like we're getting expansion, and it sounds like at some point the college football playoff will expand from 12 to we're skipping right past 14, and it looks like we're going to 16 teams. For a moment, Chris, it appeared as though 4 automatic qualifiers would be granted to the Big Ten and the SEC, but now a new model has emerged, the 5+11 college football playoff model. 5 automatic qualifiers, your 5 highest-ranked conference champions. Just to paint this picture, let's say on most years, the Big Ten champ, the SEC champ, the Big 12 champ, the ACC champ, and the Pac-12 champ, or whichever other group of 6 conference champion is the highest ranked in a given season. Those 5 conference champs and the next highest ranked 11 college football teams out there. I say this is a pretty sensible model. I don't know that you need automatic qualifiers. If you're in the Big Ten and you're one of the best teams in the Big Ten, Chris, you're getting into the college football playoff with 16 teams.
Yeah, I was a little confused by the 5th team just because now we mentioned Power 5 is now Power 4. So I was trying to figure out who that other 5th school or that 5th conference would be. I guess Pac-12 is still alive.
Coming back.
Yeah, they're coming back. I think I saw Boise State and some other colleges are moving there. So I guess you could consider Power 5. It's an interesting model, but I definitely like that, better than the 4-4-2-2-1 model that was presented, which I don't think they equal 16. But
and 3 at-large bids in that model that you're talking about.
It's interesting, but after last year with Boise State and Arizona State getting those automatic buys, you knew that there was some change had to be made. So to see them say the 4 champions get automatic, is that what you said? For 4 champions get automatic buys, I think.
In the 4-4-2-2-1?
In the 5-11.
The 4 highest ranked teams would get buys, and I think in what's presented right now, the top 2 teams would get double buys, but the 5 highest ranked conference champions would definitely get in to the college football playoff.
So let's say if Arizona State won the Big 12, that doesn't make them get one of the buys?
No.
Okay.
They would not be guaranteed a bye.
Okay. So it's just the highest ranked member at the conference at the end of the year.
That's guaranteed into the college football playoff. And then buys would just be awarded to the 4 highest ranked teams according to the college football playoff selection committee's rankings, which that was one of the recent changes is they for this year are going to straight seeding, which I think is right. You look at the way last year played out. Oregon wound up getting Ohio State in its first playoff game. They, obviously had that initial bye as the Big Ten champ, and then all of a sudden you look up and you're getting Ohio State when if it had been done by straight seeding, I think it would have been Indiana, and I'm trying to remember who that 9th team would have been. I want to say it would have been Indiana. Boise State would have been playing to meet Oregon. So long story short, I do think they got it right on straight seeding.
Yeah, 100%. So I like that little change. I definitely want to see 16. I think 16, like you said, it just broadens the field for who can win, broadens the field for teams who deserve to be in. Playing postseason ball gives them a better chance to be in, and selfishly saying gives Iowa a better chance to get in. Before Iowa's probably never going to make it unless we just had a super team one year. 12 increased our chances. 16 Now you're looking at probably definitely a 50-60% chance to get in, not guaranteed. But Iowa has a great chance considering that our record is always above 8 wins since 2015, except the COVID year we went 6-2. But I like the model. I like the expansion idea of 16. It should go nowhere above 16. I think 16 is a set number we should be at. And I think if it goes to 16, we'll see Iowa football play more than just 12 games a year. We'll probably see them play 13, maybe 14, and if we're lucky, 15 and 16. Hopefully we get there. But I like the model, to say the least. I like the model. I was just a little confused on that part of like you said, whether it was the conference champion getting in or just where the ranking of like how was it last year? Like a Texas and not Big 12, Iowa State in the Big 12. They were probably one of the better Big 12 teams, but Arizona State won, so I was confused on whether Arizona get the bye or Iowa State get the bye, however that works. But yeah, the as long as it doesn't end up in a situation like it was last year for the playoffs, because none of those teams that got the bye made it past the second round, which is pretty telling. So
crazy.
Yeah, as long as they fix that part, then they could do whatever model is worse. As long as they just got to fix that part, I think, no matter what.
Does it matter to Iowa? Like, this thing's going to expand. The college football playoff is going to expand sooner rather than later to 16 teams. Now, the configuration of the expansion, that's up for some more discussion, some more debate. But does it matter for Iowa the way it shakes out? If you get 4 automatic qualifiers from the Big Ten plus those 3 at-large bids, do you like that better for Iowa, or just, hey, the Big Ten champ, you know that you get an automatic bid, and then just the 11 highest ranked teams that aren't conference champions, they're getting in? Does it matter either way for Iowa?
I think it definitely matters, just because since we're always competitive, it gives us a better chance of getting in, regardless of what the exact model is for those bye teams and remaining teams after that. If that's the case, then it would just be a matter of, can we get inside? Can we be ranked inside of the top 15 by the end of the season, which Iowa has a chance every year. It hasn't happened too much the past decade or so, but we have proven that we're usually ranked and we have a chance of getting in that top 15 slot. And if we do finish in that top 15 slot, then it's okay. Well, you could expect Iowa to see postseason ball come end of November, December, January, so on, whenever that would start. It definitely matters, but it's just all about how we execute going forward, because it's how I'm trying to think of it is like Alabama. I believe they missed the playoffs last year.
They did.
So if we had a 16 team model last year, Alabama's getting in 100%.
South Carolina's getting in. Ole Miss is getting in. Those 3,
yeah,
all would have been in.
Yeah, so for those schools, it definitely matters more, because they would have, like Alabama, if they're ever like their worst season, at least with the 16 model, they're going to get in no matter what. Iowa's pretty much near best season determines if we can get in or not. Alabama's going to be in there. So this definitely matters to us.
Yeah, I think just the expansion to 16 is great news for Iowa. And then from there, if it's 4 automatic qualifiers out of the Big Ten go, plus you have 3 at-large bids, up for grabs, or if it's just, hey, the Big Ten champ goes and there's 11 at-large bids up for grabs. To me, the expansion to 16 is the big item for Iowa. I don't know that the 4-4-2-2-1 model plus the 3 at-large bids versus the 5+11, I don't know that there's a big difference for Iowa between what the expansion looks like. I think just the amount of teams growing to 16 is good news for Iowa. And I've always said, Chris, that the hope is that this creates some parity, that Iowa getting into the college football playoff, if you can go once, then you can go twice. And if you can go twice, well, okay, if we didn't win in the first go around, well, now we're back. We know what this experience is like, and let's go win a game in the college football playoff. So I guess what I'm saying is your hope is by getting into the dance, getting into the college football playoff, that can rise the tide of the program. Now, all of a sudden, you could recruit maybe a higher ranked athlete, and all of a sudden the program just keeps climbing that way. So that would be my hope for Iowa in this college football playoff expansion, is that it opens new horizons for the program.
You hit the nail on the head. What I was just about to say. I was going to say for not even just Iowa, but a lot of those schools that wouldn't have got into playoffs with the 14 model. But now if you move to 16, for those teams that you have a chance every year to make it, it gives those teams better chance of seeing some better players maybe transfer to their school. Whereas the Georgias and Alabamas get all the elite players because they want to see postseason ball. They want a chance at a ring. Now, if Iowa gets into playoffs, if they're at least in contention for playoff every single year, we'll have a better chance of having some of those top 4-star, 5-star recruits looking at us more and saying, I can go there, I can make them better, we can compete, and I can get a chance at least playing postseason ball or getting a ring. That matters so much to our school, to the Oklahomas, to the South Carolinas, to the Ole Misses, some of those B-tier ranked programs in college football. What it does for the whole college football landscape as a whole, I think it's really going to diversify stuff rather as just these 4, 5, 6 teams get all the best players. Now, okay, they might keep their options open even more just because they might have more opportunity to start a certain school that can at least make the football playoffs. Hence Iowa, now they're in there. So I like the model for that reason. You definitely hit it on the head with that one. I was just about to go there, but you hit that. That's good.
And your hope, or I think the power brokers' hope in college football, is that revenue sharing, this Deloitte, the clearinghouse, the NIL clearinghouse, that the true NIL deals, if there's genuine enforcement there on those NIL deals from the Deloitte clearinghouse, that can help level the playing field a little bit in college football, in college athletics as well. That, of course, remains to be seen. But look, all of these factors in conjunction with one another could help parity in college football. And obviously for a program like Iowa that has been good, Chris, for so long, but the elite season, they've been waiting for a while on that elite season. We've seen glimpses, 2009, 2015, right? Each of those two certainly come to mind. And the early Big Ten championship season under Kirk Ferentz in 2002 as well. The Hawkeyes have had those bubbles of greatness, but maybe some of these factors can create more of that, which would be great. This is what Iowa fans are hoping for.
Yeah. And to think that those elite seasons don't consider our 10-2 season a couple years past, our 9-3 seasons that we couple those that we had the past decade, just shows how good Iowa football is, its consistency, its excellence, our development program. And now, if we are able to contend for the playoffs every single year at the very minimum, those players, as we go back to recruiting, those top players are going to notice those top records more. They're going to notice the excellence in developing players more, the push for pro players more. It just, like, for the Iowa, for the whole program and for the history of the program and future moving forward, it does so much justice for us with the college football expansion. So I'm hoping that falls through. I really, I'm on board with the idea, but who am I to say? We just host a podcast. Our opinion doesn't, necessarily matter too much when it comes to the board making a decision. But all we could do is echo the voices that are probably, thinking that behind their phones, behind their computers, and the ones that are saying it in front of the camera. I would love to see that, man. It has to happen. 16 has to happen. Whatever, 4-4-2-2-1 or 5-11, no matter what, this benefits the program majorly, way past just playoff contention in all areas. If you sit down and deeply think about it, it's a gold mine for Hawkeye football to improve its status. Seriously.
You don't think Tony Petitti is dialed into what Chris Meglio is saying on Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live? I beg to differ, my friend. I like to imagine the Big Ten commish sitting and watching on every Monday night, beginning at 6 o'clock right here, Iowa at the voice of college football. This is Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live. I'm Josh Elmer. He's Chris Meglio. Follow us on the socials at Josh on Ref. He is at Chris_Meglio. And please catch the show again every Monday at 6 o'clock on your favorite audio platform, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, iHeart, wherever you get your podcast out there. This is Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live numero 8 for us. Hey, we got kickoff times.
Let's go. Yeah, finally got some. I like to see it at Indiana game. That's my birthday day. So that's the one game where you should not see an article from me, because I will be celebrating that in the stands as a fan for the first time in a while with my family and friends that are coming up that day. So that day, don't expect an article from me. But I like some of those times. I don't know how you feel about it. I love the fact that, first of all, 88 days left till Hawkeye football.
Getting close.
It'll be here before you know it.
Real quick, let's just say hello. Hawkeye Howard in the house. I know many of you are hanging out with us. What's up, Howard? He says, hey, my fellow Hawkeye fans, just a few more months. As you said, 88, Mr. Meglio, until football. And he's ready to put players under contract. Can't transfer for the first 3 years. And if they try to transfer, they got to buy out of the contract. That could be around the corner. Something like that.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a theory I never thought of, but we know with the way stuff goes these days and these college football kids have a little money, transfer might cost them a little bit. I think that would help some keep some notoriety instead of seeing 400 transfers a year now. Portal's getting crazy. That's an interesting theory.
What do you like? What do you think about this? Transfer season into the year, one time a year. So right now you've got the winter transfer portal window, and you've also got the spring transfer portal window. There's been some scuttlebutt. There's been some discussion that, hey, we at SEC spring meetings, Kirby Smart was out there saying that, look, the most important thing we've got going on in college football right now is we got to get rid of 2 transfer portal windows. We got to get down to one specific transfer portal window. Kirk Ferentz has talked about the transfer portal windows plenty. So what do you think about that? One transfer portal window, and I'll place it in January, wherever you'd like, Chris.
Yeah. I'm on board with that. Eliminating 2, just have 1. And thinking about it off the rip, never put too much thought into it. It would make more sense to keep the spring one, eliminate the winter, just for the simple fact that I'm thinking about what Kirk Ferentz said about telling his players, hey, this is what your role is most likely going to be. If you decide to go somewhere else for more opportunity, this is what you can do. So at least it doesn't give players necessarily the option to transfer right after the season, or you could say mid-season too, but it also gives them some time to kind of reflect and think a little bit before they have to make a decision come the spring. Maybe if it is just a spring and those couple months away, maybe they think about it, they do decide to stay. I'm sure there's some players out there that have transferred a little too early and thought, man, I should have stayed. It doesn't hurt for them to take a little extra time to think. Maybe there's a little extra time to improve on their game instead of transferring right away. So when they come back, they could be the player they need to be for this program. That's how I see it, though. I don't know. What do you think? I think the spring would be good in eliminating the winter.
That all makes sense. The pushback will not be from me, but this would be the pushback, I think, from coaches is I want to know what I'm operating with by February 1. Mm-hmm. I want to know, hey, who's on my roster? Everything you said is right, that somebody could have a change of heart, and by the end of the spring, your mind's a little clearer than it was at the beginning of winter, right? So I think you made a good point, and it's a strong argument for having the later spring transfer portal window. But coaches want to know, hey, I've got my roster, and this is what it is. And February 1, boom, here we go, right? So I think probably coaches will win out when this thing is all said and done. Controversial opinion for you, okay? I know that this is in some ways not great for every young person. There's the extra windows leads to sometimes kids making bad decisions, and all of a sudden they wind up where they don't have a spot. So let me preface it by saying I'm sympathetic to that, and I do think that's a legitimate problem. And if we're about in college sports helping young people, then probably we do need one set transfer portal window. And you better think long and hard before you make that decision to enter the transfer portal, because there's some legitimate repercussions if you leave and all of a sudden you don't get a spot somewhere else, or it's not the same situation, or the grass wasn't greener on the other side. Having said that, for the purposes of this show, other radio shows, writing content on the interwebs, man, it's a reporter's dream to have 2 transfer portal windows. There is more to talk about than ever before in college sports. Again, there's plenty of not so great with it. I understand that. But honestly, for college sports, the publicity of college sports, I think the transfer portal, both of them have been great for the publicity of college athletics. Now, for the old-time fans, I understand where you don't like it. Transfer portal, I want to know that you're going to be here. I want to know that you're under contract for 3-4 years. I certainly get that. But again, for the excitement, for the publicity side, for the ever-revolving door of college athletics, I actually think in some ways it's been kind of exciting.
It has been. It's, as you said, there's more to talk about than anything before. And as a reporter's dream, you and I ourselves, both reporters, yes, there is more content out there. It gives us in the off season when there might not be much to talk about, but now there is, because you got guys coming in and out, keeps things interesting. Now, I want to jump to this real quick, because I know we got some other stuff to talk about. We were going to talk about the schedule and all that. I'm thinking of the Caden Proctor situation where he transferred to Iowa for a month and then left because he still did it within the window when it had to be done. If it is just one session instead of 2, if in your opinion, how big should the window be for transfers? And do you have that expanded a little longer now because there's only one? What would that look like? Or do you keep it the same, or maybe even shorter?
I do think, again, if this is about student athletes, you try to get it done in a month's time, beginning of January, or if you want it to be after the college football season ends. Though, to me, I'm thinking enrollment into college classes and getting situated. When did your winter and spring semester start? What day?
So the winter, are you talking about like a winter break or
first day of class this past semester? When was it?
Okay, this was January 22nd or 20th.
Okay, so end of January, you're in class.
Yeah, somewhere in that little end of January.
I'd like to have the transfer portal more or less finished by the time you're going to class. That's in the best interest of student athletes. Now, that's probably not realistic. So there's some give and take, but as close as you can get to that, I think is ideal. So with all of that in mind, where does it fit on the calendar for the entirety of the college football season to be played before you open the transfer portal, so you don't get a Bo Pribula situation where, hey, he's the backup quarterback at Penn State, and all of a sudden, boom, he's gone off to Missouri. Iowa is trying to land Bo Pribula before the college football playoffs even over. Like, that's a situation that you don't like in college football. You'd like to have the season finished while also respecting, okay, let's try to get locations and destinations wrapped up before the next academic semester plays out.
I like that idea. It's about the student and just as much as the athlete is. I'm just trying to think of when that portal would open, because I'm pretty sure that the playoffs will still be in progress by that time. Because maybe some of those teams that are on playoff teams that are contending for titles, maybe it gives them a much shorter window in that span to transfer before the window ends. I'm just trying to think. Well, it's such a cluster of an idea to think about when it comes to transfer portal. But as we're pretty much implying to, some change might have to happen, because transfers are a pretty big issue now. When kids are now you got 4-year kids playing for 4 different schools. We don't want to see that. We love continuity is what makes it fun. Every team being competitive is what makes it fun. And if one player is transferring out just because he didn't play every single snap, every single game on the field, also think about it, they're not building good habits, like being a student, but just the person too. Like they're building bad habits if they're able to just walk wherever they can, whenever they want, just because they're not getting exactly what they want. We got to teach them that heart. You have to work. You have to stay true to the process. So do we limit? I think limiting the amount of transfers as well also is a thing too, where they just can't. Like one transfer, it doesn't work out one place. I understand going somewhere else, but that's why you have the window. Is you have to really think about where the best option is for you to go. It gives you enough time, and then you make a decision. But now these kids are being, in my opinion, irresponsible with it. Where I'll just go here because just because it looks cool, and I'll see what happens. And if not, I can go here next year. Now you got kids transferring 4 or 5 times. There has to be a limit on transfers that you have. I think 1, maybe 2, but I think kids should only get 1 opportunity to transfer. I that's what I think.
I would be a proponent of that. That would be, taking it back kind of how it was. I don't know that we're getting the toothpaste back in the tube, but hey, I'm here for it. Scott Hinning, great show, guys. Keeps us going. I'm a 49-year Hawkeye fan. Go Hawks. Scott, thanks for being in the house with us. Howard wants us to switch it up a bit. This year, Iowa needs to tighten up their defense. I'm calling out Phil Parker. Do better. You're slacking.
Blind.
Okay. On that note, how much more does Iowa need to tidy things up defensively? Because, look, they've been the bell cows for this Hawkeye program for a good long while. Last year, they were not at that same elite level. There were at times some openings in the secondary. How concerned are you with what we saw defensively from the Hawkeyes a season ago? How confident are you that Iowa can return to the Phil Parker defenses of, 2 years ago when he was the Broyles Award winner?
Yeah. It's difficult to say that we could return to where we were 2 years ago. Our defense absolutely carried the season because our offense was quite literally the worst in the FBS. But to think that 2 years ago we had Cooper DeJean, Nick Jackson, Jay Higgins, and a couple other very notable names that I'm blanking on right now. But those are so many NFL-bound guys that could really impact an NFL defense. And considering what we lost this last upcoming offseason, mainly to the draft, it's just hard to say that we can return to that. To say we're slacking, Howard, I understand where you're coming from, but at the same time, our slacking is still elite defense in college football. Just because we're not in the top 10 in defense, or maybe even top 5 like we're used to being, I think we were at top 30 defense, 30 to 40, somewhere in that window. That's still pretty good considering how many FBS teams are there. We just weren't, the elite showstopper defense that we're used to being. So in terms of Iowa standards, we slacked. In terms of overall standards, we were still a good defense. So I think there has to be some improvement, but we also have to give the team some grace considering we lost so many notable pieces on defense. So we have to give some grace into this next offseason or this next upcoming season and just see what happens with these next guys. Max Llewellyn, TJ Hall, Xavier Nwampa, for the guys that haven't raved about spring. We have to see what those guys do, but they have to step up if we want to get back to that top 10.
I do think it's fair to place blame on the defense for Iowa from a season ago for a couple of the leads and games that they lost. Howard, I watched the games from last year again. The run defense really bit our backside in 2 games we should have won, and that's a fair critique. It wasn't as good as it's been, but again, it's been so great and saved Iowa when the offense was dreadful on many an occasion. That look, everybody's held to a high bar, and just because you were great a couple of years ago doesn't excuse Iowa for a couple of out of standard performances a season ago. But that being said, I'm going to bank on Phil Parker to fix whatever woes there were a season ago. But it's an interesting discussion here. I think how do Thursdays work for you? this is an on-air discussion of your schedule. Are Thursdays open for you moving forward?
You will have to see. I could make it open. I definitely, if we're gonna do this on Thursdays, which is favorable, I could make it open. I could definitely do that.
We'll revisit this in an off-air discussion. But long story short, I think if not this week, then soon we'd like to unveil our Thursday show where we just join you on Thursdays as well at 6 o'clock and do a call-in show. Since we showed it earlier, we did not run this down. We have kickoff times, ladies and gentlemen. Look at this. For the Iowa Hawkeyes, here's what we know so far. And some of these not totally finalized, but on 7 games, we got a pretty good idea of what's going on. So here's what we know for sure. Saturday, the opener on August 30th, 5 o'clock kickoff, Central Time, FS1 versus Albany. The Cyhawk game in week 2, that's on the Saturday, September 6th. 11 o'clock, so early morning, big noon kickoff on Fox versus Iowa State. UMass, this is an evening prime time game on the Big Ten Network. Iowa hosting UMass September 13th. That is a 6:30 kickoff there. At Rutgers, another primetime game, this one on the road. So the evening treatment for 3 out of the first 4 and big noon kick for Iowa State in that week 2 affair. 7 o'clock, by the way, versus Rutgers Central Time. That is on Fox. The other dates that we know so far versus Indiana, the homecoming game. Well, we know a little bit, but we also don't know a lot of it. The September 27th date versus Indiana. It's either 11 a.m., 2:30, or 3 o'clock on, well, to be determined on the TV side. At USC on November 15th, 2 o'clock or 2:30. We don't know the TV designation there. We do know that the regular season finale at Nebraska, 11 o'clock on CBS. That, of course, the Black Friday date. What do you think?
I am with Bob Hoffman right here. I like those early evening start times. I like how we have a good amount of them. It just gives the day to do whatever we want. And then the night game, where we don't have to wake up at, let's say, Indiana, 11 a.m. Do I have to wake up at 8 or 9 to get ready for the game? And I'll selfishly say, like I said, that's my birthday, September 27th. Assuming my family and friends come up on Friday, I know what I'll be doing Friday night. I would hate to wake up super early on a Saturday for the game. I will do it, but it would be nice if the committee could spare us some time to, recover after a hefty night outside. I'm going to put it out there. But, I like most of these times. The Nebraska game, sure, it gives us prime time. Fans need to see that after what happened last year. Shout out to Drew Stevens. But yeah, I like the evening times. I'm favorable for those. I love to see the Hawkeyes play under the lights and when the night is dark. I like to see that. What are your thoughts? What are your favorable times?
Well, I'm surprised that Albany and UMass are both evening games. Not against it, just surprised that those got the evening window for those two. Iowa State, I think, is perfect at either 11 or 2:30. I like that it's a big noon kick, so it will get plenty of play on Fox, and that's a big game for both next season. Can Iowa led for the entirety of that game last year versus Iowa State, and that one mistake early in the second half by Cade McNamara seemed to really flip that game. But you got Rocco Becht coming back. Iowa State's thought to be a pretty good football team again. Iowa, of course, with Gronowski, that will be his first big road test. So nice to see that get some national spotlight with the big noon kick on Fox. That'll be fun there. The evening game, the last time that Iowa went to Piscataway, you had the Cooper DeJean pick six where he made the catch facing the other end zone and then turned around and raced into the end zone for the pick six for the Hawkeyes. That was fun. So fun to see that Rutgers game again played at night. Nebraska, I think, hey, whatever time that one gets played on Black Friday's good with me. It is fine that it's an 11 o'clock CBS kick. Again, I think it'll get a bunch of attention in that window, and seeing those two play on Black Friday, that's just fun. Having that rivalry game, wherever you want to put it on Black Friday is good.
Yeah. Man, that Nebraska game, I wish it was at night again. That's one of those games where I wish it was at night. Because last year was at night, and to see Drew Stevens kick that 50-ish yard field goal to win the game under the bright lights is awesome. But we're not complaining. You know, it's on prime time. Let the world see it. Whatever time it has to be at, let the world see it. So I'm in favor of what is there. Like we said, I like more the night games. A little surprised that those two regional out of conference games are nighttime, but I'm not complaining. I'll be there, and it gives me the day to go eat, go through my routine, but instead of rushing to the stadium. I like that, so it'll be fun. It's a nice schedule. I like how it's coming.
Maybe we can have a prolonged discussion about Iowa defensively on Thursday. Let's tentatively plan on Thursday night, 6:00. We'll be back with you on Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live with a call-in show, which we've not done. So that will be on the technical end of the equation. Wish myself and Chris good luck on that to see if we can actually figure out how to operate a call-in show. But I think from this point forward, the idea is when Thursdays allow in my schedule, in your schedule, we're going to widen the show out and start having two shows a week. So we didn't talk about Joey Mattione or Peyton McCollum, the Iowa basketball ads. There's some Iowa women's basketball news today. They hired another assistant coach. So that is exciting. We can break down all of that. The ESPN preseason SP Plus rankings, Iowa was just outside of these, the post-spring ESPN SP Plus rankings, but those are kind of interesting to look at what the efficiency expectations are for Iowa offensively, defensively, special teams. They're just outside. They're not far outside that top 25, so maybe we can kick that around on Thursday as well. But before we get out of here, you got anything for one thing out the door?
Well, if you guys tune into the past shows, I'm an NBA guy. I say Pacers, Thunder. I don't like this narrative that two small markets can't make for a good finals. If you're an NBA fan, if you're not big into the NBA, please do research on these two teams, what they've done this season, and kind of the background on them, because these are arguably the two deepest teams in the league, with two rising point guards, rising stars that play really fast. Two really young teams. OKC's the youngest team ever to reach the finals. With the MVP on the team, Tyrese Halliburton is supposedly the most overrated player in the game, rated by the NBA players themselves. And after being benched pretty much all the USA summer last year, the gold medal team, and being looked as an overrated player this year, takes his team to the finals. There's a lot of good storylines behind this. It's going to be a really good finals. I will bet you this will be one of the better finals in the past couple years, despite my opinion of it being OKC in 5. It'll still be a battle. I just think OKC is going to take it just because they're the best defensive team in the past decade. I'm willing to go that far. They're elite. So tune in to those finals. It's gonna be awesome. That's why I'll put it.
Rick Pitino put the tweet out last week that in all of his years, college basketball coaching giant Rick Pitino, in all of his years coaching at Kentucky, Louisville, and obviously now St. John's in other stops as well for Rick Pitino, he never showed NBA defensive tape. It was always, hey, look at this offensive set or look at this offensive action. Well, this year he tweeted out, I showed a lot of Oklahoma City Thunder defensive tape. And I thought that was a pretty profound statement from Rick Pitino that, look, these guys play defense. That's unusual in the NBA, and they do it in an unusually great manner. I'm with you. I think don't get caught up in what a couple of grumpy folks from big city markets want to lead you to believe. This is going to be a knock 'em, drag them out war in the NBA Finals between two super athletic, really talented young teams in Oklahoma City and Indiana. I'm looking forward to it too, man. But hey, that's going to do it for us. We've got obviously plenty more Iowa football, basketball, you name it, news to bring to you on Thursday night. For my partner, Chris Meglio, give him a follow at Chris_Meglio. I am at Josh on Ref, and you can follow my work as well at Hawkeyes Wire on X. But check us out, like the page on Facebook as well. And please go read my written work at HawkeyesWire.com. And of course, like and subscribe to this channel right here, Iowa, at the Voice of College Football. And go find the Voice of College Football out there on X, on Instagram, on Facebook. Just search Voice of College Football and you'll find the big mothership. And until Thursday night, Chris, for you, I'm Josh. Until then, so long, everybody.
Thanks for staying with us, guys. We always appreciate it.
And all of you, have a great night. So long.